the Pioneer viewers. Today we will share with you a very interesting development. It comes from the occupied territory of Ukraine. You know the Berdyansk region. The region is a very critical point. It is one of the main targets of the Ukrainian army. It is a very critical place for the supplies of the Russian army. Berdyansk is the first stop for the most of the needs of the Russian army on the front line. There is an occupation administration in Berdyansk. The administrators appointed by this occupation administration are trying to ensure the legitimacy of the Russian Federation in the region. Of course, security needs arise during the provision of this legitimacy. Who will fulfill these needs? Of course, intelligence officials. Intelligence officers who seemed to be from the local population were on duty in Berdyansk. However, in recent days, there has been a very critical development regarding 4 personnel affiliated to the Russian intelligence. So, what happened to the Russian intelligence personnel? Let's take a look at the developments together. As the Pioneer, we continue to bring you interesting details about the Russian-Ukrainian war. This work requires intense effort. In order for our team to continue its work, we need your support. You can use the super thanks button below the video to support our team. If you're ready, let's start. The Pioneer reports. The intelligence units responsible for Russia's internal security are known as the Federal Security Service. In other words, the task of the Russian Federal Security Service is to carry out espionage activities to maintain public order within the borders of the Russian Federation. First of all, we emphasize this fact. Why? Because the Russian Federal Security Service should work within the borders of the Russian Federation. However, it is a grave offense for the Russian Federal Security Service to operate in Ukraine. Russia is already violating international law by occupying Ukraine and committing many crimes at the same time. We don't need to reiterate these points. The Russian Federal Security Service personnel in the Berdyansk region is one of these offenses. Recently, there has been a remarkable developments regarding these personnel. 4 Russian Federal Security Service personnel lost their lives as a result of an attack in Berdyansk. There is no clear information about how the destruction in question took place. We are trying to examine the issue with the claims of local sources. According to the claims of local sources, 4 personnel of the Russian Federal Security Service were traveling in the vehicle. While passing near a hotel in the area, the vehicle exploded with a great noise. With the explosions of the vehicle, the Russian Federal Service personnel died on the spot. Allegedly, this was a sabotage attempt. As you know, Ukrainian sabotage groups are very active in the region. They have carried out similar attacks many times and caused heavy damage to the Russian occupation forces. Therefore, we think instead that the claims of local sources that the Ukrainian sabotage groups carried out these attacks are quite strong. Ukrainian sabotage groups are carrying out these attacks. Of course, these operations have a preparation phase. Ukrainian sabotage groups follow their targets for quite a long time. Of course, improvised explosives are also being prepared at this time. According to allegations, Ukrainian sabotage groups caught on important detail while following the Russian Federal Service personnel. The route of the 4-man team during the development never changed. Every day at the same time, they passed through the area where the explosion took place. In fact, this is a very unprofessional behavior. Such mistakes by the personnel of the Russian Federal Security Service was costly. There is a high probability that Ukrainian sabotage groups carried out an attack on the vehicle in which the Russian Federal Security Service personnel were traveling. But this is not the only possibility. Another claim is that the Ukrainian intelligence personnel have infiltrated the Russian Federal Security Service. Some local sources are voicing this. However, we don't think that this claim is very strong. Based on the region where the incident took place, the developments in the region and the mistakes made by the Russian Federal Security Service personnel, we think that it is more likely that Ukrainian sabotage groups carried out an attack. It is alleged that among the 4 Russian Federal Security Service personnel destroyed here was a personnel involved in war crimes. However, no information about the identities of the Russian intelligence officers who lost their lives has been shared so far. Russian official sources maintain their silence about the incident in question. There is a very striking detail about the place where the incident took place. According to the allegations, the hotel in question was located very close to the building used by the Russian Federal Security Service as a base in this region. The mobility in the region after the incident and the complete evacuation of the building in the region also confirms these allegations. Again, according to the allegations, the base of the Russian Federal Security Service was moved to another building. This can be seen as a critical success for Ukrainian sabotage groups. This development in the region was met with a great regret among Russian sources. Russian sources are very angry with the Russian Federal Security Service has made such a mistake. It is claimed that the trust of the Russian citizens in the Russian Federal Security Service has decreased considerably. It is very important that Russian official sources are silent about these developments. We have also stated in our previous reports, when Russian sources prefer to remain silent about the subject, we understand that the events is really happening. The Russian administration uses these methods to hide events. However, these events are usually revealed somehow. Russian official sources then accept the events in order to hide the facts but use the false information. From this point of view, we can say that the Russian official sources will accept the claim in the coming days. While these events are taking place in the occupied territories, the war on the front line continues. In the past days, Russian soldiers on the front line have released a very striking video. The Ukrainian army was carrying out an attack on the Russian army. However, during this attack, the Russian army was suffering heavy losses. Russian soldiers were also calling on the Russian general staff. The call in question was, "We can't hold out any longer. There are too many enemies. Their firepower is too much for us. If their firepower is not destroyed, they will destroy us all. Need urgent support. We lost many of our friends due to the cluster bombs. We have also so many wounded. We can't save our wounded friends. The leadership is not giving us the support we need." There is no information about where the incident in question took place. However, the images allegedly came from the Avdiivka region, where the Russian army is attacking. This development on the front line clearly reveals the situation in which the Russian army is in. The Russian army suffers many casualties despite the massive offensive. What do you think? What effect do you think the destruction of the personnel of the Russian Federal Security Service will have? How do you assess the attacks of the Ukrainian sabotage groups? What do you think will be the consequences of the Russian army's heavy losses during the offensives? Let me know in the comments. I read and care about all your comments.